Hi everyone, welcome back to another Art and Talk. I hope you're doing well. I'm so sorry if you hear noise in the background. I'm outside again today to record this audio. I've honestly been thinking. I've been thinking a lot about life, and there's been so much happening in the world, and there's been so much happening in life. And I'm one of those people who is a firm believer in we have way more access to other people's lives and to things going on in the world than we should have. And so we can be sitting in the US and see bombings happening in the Middle East. We can be sitting in Africa and see warfare happening in Europe. And to a certain extent, in my opinion, it's good to know what's going on around the world, but we should not need to know it to this extent. And so we consume so much media, a lot of which is negative. And if we're on this side of the argument of is social media good or bad, I'm always going to be the one to say that it's more bad than it is good, because the amount of negative information that we take in on a day-to-day basis is so unhealthy. And so something that I've been taking in a lot from social media is death, and there's been a lot of dying, and there's been a lot of warfare. And in my personal life, there's just been a lot of dying. It's really weird. I mean, it's not premature death, so I thank God for that, because premature death is so scary. But it's older individuals in my life, but it's just like sudden sickness or sudden death, or they're definitely older, but they're young for their age, if that makes sense. Like, we see a 90-year-old die and we're like, okay, that makes sense, they were 90. But a 60-year-old, it's like you weren't supposed to go that fast. And so I've been dealing with a couple of deaths in my family, and generally I don't really have a reaction to death. I think it's because the people that have died in my life, I've actually never been close enough to them to where it affected me. But I had an uncle die recently, and he was just like my uncle. Like, he was just part of my life for my whole life, like my whole childhood, going over to my aunt's house. I remember when I first thought that I would go to university for art, and my parents were so against it, and my uncle told me, he was like, don't listen to them. If this is what you want to do, we're in a new generation, you can do what you feel like you need to do, and I believe that you'll do good. And he always spoke life into me. And he was getting a little bit sick, and so he left the West and he traveled back home, and he ended up dying there. And he died a peaceful death, which I thank God for that, because that was mercy. He was definitely suffering a lot with whatever illness he had at the time. But that death was the first death that ever really affected me. And I'm just wow, I'm never going to see this person again. And this person, they had grandchildren, they're never going to see their grandchildren again. And it just started to hit me. And I remember when I went to his funeral, it was during my reading week break from university. And at first, I go there and my intention is I'm going to serve, I'm going to, help take care of the grandchildren and everything. And then they played this slideshow, and I don't mean to say this to be depressing, but I'm going somewhere with this. But they played this slideshow of his life, and it showed him from when he was a baby to when he immigrated to Canada, to his first time doing this and doing that and going to the mall and riding on the train. And it was just such a beautiful celebration of life. But it just hit me so hard in that moment. I realized we really don't have as much time as we think we do, and death doesn't have to answer to us. We're never going to know when something is going to happen. We're never going to know how something is going to happen. And I recently had a scare in my family, because my dad traveled back home and he got a little sick while he went there, and we didn't really hear from him for 2 days, because I guess he was in the hospital or whatever was happening. But it was a really big scare, because you assume that if you heard somebody was sick and then you tried to contact them and you haven't heard from them in 2 days, you assume the worst. And so I'm on a walk right now, and I was talking to God, and I'm like, Lord, I don't want to assume the worst about this situation. I don't want to assume the worst about my family, because in Psalms 91, you said, though 1,000 fall at my side and 10,000 are dying around me, these evils will not touch me, and so I won't fear the arrows of the day or the darkness of the night. The Bible talks about how we're covered, right? So I'm like, Lord, I trust you, and I don't want to hear stuff like this and assume the worst. But I had to be honest with God in this moment, and I was like, God, we're like 7 months, well, from when I'm recording this, we're like 7 months into 2026, and I've had enough mental warfare to last me a lifetime. Like, it has been extremely difficult, and I'm not one of those people who has like a bad couple of months and then declares that the whole year is ruined. Like, I still believe God's going to redeem me. I still believe that, there's 5 more months left of this year. Like, God can do it. I'm still a firm believer that God can do it. But I had to have a vulnerable moment and tell God, like, listen, I'm not one of your strongest soldiers. Like, I've dealt with so much mental warfare so far, and I can't deal with another death, and I definitely can't deal with the death of a parent. And I think having that conversation was so hard to have. But as I'm growing older, I'm realizing, like, that's just a part of life. And I was learning about the 5 stages of grief, right? And I deal with grief in so many different ways, even when it's not pertaining to death, like grief of the new assignment that God is giving you, or grief of having to let go of somebody, right? And in this particular stage of my life, for certain roles that God is calling me to and certain relationships that he's telling me to leave, I feel that I'm in that acceptance phase of grief where I've just accepted that this is what's happening. But I want to encourage somebody today that if death is happening all around you, and if so many things are changing and you don't know what's happening and things are just going haywire, you don't have to go straight to the acceptance phase. God is listening. God cares about our future. I think of the verse from Jeremiah 31 verses 25, where God promises to take care of us and he promises to restore us. And it's like, you don't know the power of prayer until you continuously pray without ceasing, until you trust that when you pray that God is listening. And I had to be honest with God in this moment, and I prayed to him and I said, listen, like, I know that illness can turn to death very quickly, and I'm praying that you heal my parent. And I was honest with God. I was like, Lord, I just want my dad to see me get married. I just want my dad to meet my first child, like, at least give him that, right? And we find ourselves bargaining with God and trying to convince God to not let something happen. But I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, God, even if this happens, even if my prayer request is, the answer to that is a no, like, even if all else fails, I still trust you. This world is crazy. There's too much going on. There's too much warfare. There's too many opinions. There's too many voices. There's too much negativity for me to sit here and submit to that. I still trust God. But I want to encourage you to know that you can trust God and still pray that he take the thorn out your side. He may not do it, but he may do it as well. So I don't know. I don't really know, to be honest, where I'm going with this audio, but I don't know. I'm just sitting here on a bench and I'm thinking and I'm reflecting about life, and like, I'm moving into my 20s and I'm just learning, like, life does not stop for anybody. Life does not stop for anybody. Make sure you're connected to God. Make sure that you have a source. Make sure that you have supports, right? And it's like, if you have nobody in your life, make sure that you have a relationship with Jesus Christ. Make sure you have a relationship with God, because life can be taken away from us at any moment. And I think what's scarier than thinking about somebody dying is thinking about what life is going to look like for them after they die. Like, I can't even imagine, one of my family members or somebody that I love dying and not getting to spend eternity with Christ. Like, that is crazy to me, because I know that there's only one other option from there, right? And I don't say that to scare anyone, or I don't say that to make anybody feel afraid, but I say, like, there's no better time than now to get right with God. There's no better time than now to just start a relationship with him. And it can start as something as simple as a conversation with him. But tomorrow is not promised. But as we have today, and as our feet are grounded and grounded in being in the present moment, we have a chance. We have a chance to repent. We have a chance to start over. We have a chance to try a new mindset. We have a chance to accept joy. You don't have to live in grief. You don't have to live in depression. You can make a request to God and know that he's listening to what you're saying. But you do not have to go straight to the acceptance phase of accepting where you are. You can plead your case and believe that the courts of heaven are going to listen to you. But above all else, the most important thing is to make sure that you know God and that you're secure in him. Because in moments like this, that's your anchor. That's who you can hold on to. So I hope you're encouraged, and I thank you for listening to this audio, and I can't wait to see you next on another Art and Talk.